to go back in history and look at, crypto and what was the reason why it was created. Was it created just to enrich or make Richard feel good about himself, the gentleman who created it? I don't think so. So let's go back and look at history. So, Bitcoin came out in 2000. In 8, 9, 10, they were talking about it in these forums called IRC chat rooms, and I was privy to it. I was in the gaming community, building gaming platform, social media stuff for a game called Counter-Strike, and I saw what was going on, and I didn't really pay much attention to it until 2014 when I saw this stuff moving really, really fast, and realized that crypto was going to be something really important to the world. And so getting involved, really gung-ho about it, ran into all the pitfalls and all the BS that it's crypto. And that means all of the pump and dump rooms of 2017, the fake ICOs, all that stuff, all the network marketing crap that went on behind it. So there was a ton of scams. And so, it was a constant barrage of just stuff being screwed up. So I was pretty jaded when I was pretty jaded when it came to, hold on one second. Yes, thank you. They're getting my lunch for me. Where was I now? Okay. So anyway, the pump and dump stuff was going on and everybody was jaded about it. And, there were very few people talking about solutions, about self-custody, about getting rid of all these weird exchanges and stuff that were holding on to your crypto. ICOs that never showed up in your wallets, pump and dump rooms where, you'd get hyped up in one room and another room would be getting ready to sell on top of your head. And then there'd be another room getting ready to sell on top of their heads, before they get. So it was discouraging, but I wasn't giving up at the time. I was looking for people who were saying the right things, doing the right things, wanted to adhere to the things that Satoshi wrote in his white paper and that the cypherpunks were putting out there, because in the beginning, everybody was, all about what crypto meant. And so along the way, I ran into this stream with a guy with a top hat that was talking about, self-help stuff and do better, stop gambling, stop playing video games, these kinds of things. And he also spoke about crypto, and he just had something about him that was, just seemed very genuine, wanted to help, wanted to do things, wanted to make stuff happen, and seemed like he cared about other people with his content that he was putting out. So I started watching him, and then he called the top of the 2007, that was Richard Hart, by the way, in his top hat days. And he called the top of the 2017 Christmas there, and everything like crashed the next day after he called it. And it was disheartening seeing it all crash like that, holding on while everything was going down, and really pissed me off. And basically I didn't even want to see that guy anymore. But then a day later I realized that, hey, dummy, that guy called the top. You can't be mad at him. He called the top. So very irrational. My brain was working at that time. But then I started watching him, and Richard said he was going to make his own crypto. So let's see what this guy does, because I was ready to get out. I was done with crypto. And so what happened was he came out with this fluid dynamics token that he was creating, and it was just way over my head. It was stuff I didn't understand, mathematical shit that they were doing and whatnot. And so I didn't pay too much attention to it. But then he came out with this thing called Bitcoin HEX. And as he started explaining it, I started to kind of pick up on what it was, and it started sounding real exciting. So got involved with the Telegram room, and boom, that was kind of like it. What happened in the early days in the Telegram room, in the hex.com Telegram room, was nothing short of just refreshing and miraculous, because although there was still your typical FUD and your typical trolls and your typical bullshit that goes on in those rooms, you had a lot of very, very intelligent people from crypto coming there. And Richard was in there interacting with everybody, telling everybody what was going on. There were, rooms that sprout off from it. I watched people go after him, and create rooms to try and dox him and do all this weird stuff. So it was a mixture of very, very smart crypto people and then the typical stuff that was going on at the time. But it all started to make sense what Hex was going to be. And I was like, man, this is self-custody. This is immutable code. This guy's going to get this stuff audited. Like all of the things were lining up, audits nowadays, I now that I've been involved with, the actual development of cryptos and stuff like that, I don't think audits are that big of a deal as they were at that time, because nobody's getting audits. And Richard ended up getting 3 of them. So all the stuff, all the writing was on the wall. This thing was going to be awesome. And, as the launch came, we had this thing called the adoption amplifier. And the adoption amplifier was basically just going to allow you to purchase a certain amount of Hex every day by dumping your Ethereum into a bucket. And depending upon how much Ethereum got dumped in that bucket was how much that Hex was distributed out to everybody. So there were days that the bucket wasn't quite full. There were days, and that was good because you got a bigger share of the Hex. And there were days that the bucket was empty, or a big whale would come at the end of the day and wreck the, you'd think you were getting a whole bunch, and then a whale would come at the end of the day and buy some, and it would, shoot the amount of Hex you got down. But what else happened is that you could claim you can use your Bitcoin, sign a signature, and claim your free Hex for that. And so we were learning all these things, what this adoption amplifier meant versus an ICO. And at that time, Uniswap came out. So we had a DEX to work with, and we were playing with liquidity and seeing how liquidity was working. So the Hex community was becoming very, very smart, very, very fast, and learning things that crypto had not taught us. And there were tools coming out that had not existed before. So it's very unique. Everything was very unique at the time. And of course, the smartest of the smart were now involved in this. So we've got like a perfect storm starting to develop. And as you can see all this, now, if I can see this, and I know a lot of other people can see it, and as this was forming, as this community was building, and the people were talking about this, the FUD came harder and harder and harder. And it got very, very noticeable that there were forces outside that did not want it to succeed, did not want Richard to succeed, did not want the community to succeed, didn't want any of it, And so we started streaming. There was, Hexo was helping me set up my stream. He started streaming. I started streaming right after him. We were Marines. We kind of met in the Hex chat room, Marine buddies kind of deal. So he showed me how to set up Discord Syndicate. I did that and invited everybody so that we could showcase everybody that was in Hex. And so doing that, the community grew, and we just kept fighting and fighting and fighting. And everything that emerged about Hex itself as it launched, as Big Payday came. And by the way, Big Payday was the day that it launched. The adoption amplifier with the ETH was, the pre-launch, and then the launch was that day. And that day, all of the Bitcoin claims that didn't claim, all that Hex that was left over, because there's a certain amount of Bitcoin that could claim. There were some wallets that were removed out because of, very obvious reasons. I think the Gox wallet and a couple others. But all the Bitcoin that was there available had a certain amount of Hex that it could claim. And all of the unclaimed Hex went to all of the stakers that were in before Big Payday. So it was a bonus on top of your stakes and everything. So a lot of us staked longer because we realized that we screwed up and didn't stake long enough, because the staking at the time was off the chart. I mean, we were doing really well. And so Big Payday came, all the claims went out. But before that, something moved. This thing called the OA, the originating address. Now, that originating address got copies of the coins that were going out to everybody. So it was growing a big surplus of Hex. And a lot of people were fighting about it. A lot of people were saying, oh, Richard's going to dump on your heads with that OA and this and that. Well, when it came down to it, the Big Payday, the OA staked Hex. And, everybody thought they were going to get a certain amount of Hex, up until the day of the OA doing that. And there were a lot of people that were just like, hey, I'm going to stake for a day, then I'm going to dump on everybody's head all the Hex that I get, because there was a big amount of it because of the Bitcoin claims that were left over. Well, when the OA staked, that diluted the pool. And although we did get a very generous amount, I couldn't tell you the exact number. We did get a generous amount of big payday. It was very good, by the way. It wasn't exactly what it was looking like up until day one. And it just shattered everybody. And it was just one of the first kind of like, everybody in Hex, everybody outside of Hex was just like all weird about it. But it proved that the originating address that people talk about so often was actually a benevolent actor in the system and was protecting the stakers so that that coin wouldn't get dumped right on the day after big payday. So that's kind of the history of what happened. Now Hex started functioning and operating, and it has run smoothly for over 5 years now, based on its code. And all it is a crypto that works just like Bitcoin. You could send it and you can receive it. That's it. That's what it does. And it does it immutably. The code has been audited. It's been running for over 5 years. It's perfect and flawless in the fact that it does just that. And it ran on Ethereum. And we all know that now there's a fork of Ethereum called PulseChain that it also operates on because of the fees. Richard forked Ethereum, and then we all got copies of our Hex on PulseChain. So now we all have 2 copies, and now it runs a lot smoother on PulseChain because of the fees and whatnot. But anyway, back to Hex and its function. Now, again, it just sends back and forth. That's it. But it does have one other feature. And that other feature, and it's very complex, and there's a lot of facets to this feature, but there's a staking feature. Now, here's what's beautiful about that. It can be staked on its own with self-custody, meaning that you control the stake. You don't have to give it up to a middleman. You don't have to give it to an exchange. You don't have to give it up to a Fidelity, a BlackRock, or a Schwab, or any of these folks. You can stake your Hex on your own and control it, meaning you can take it out or you can leave it in for its time, which is what is suggested. But there is a reason for the emergency end stake button, which is pulling it out early. So we talked about Hex being like a certificate of deposit, and really it's not. But for people to understand how it works, it does work kind of like a certificate of deposit. You take an amount, you put it out for a certain amount of time. You actually get some bonuses on that. So if for longer and for bigger stakes, you actually get bonuses. So when you go to the calculator and you're staking your Hex, you'll see your effective Hex. You'll see your Hex that you're staking. You'll see your bonuses based on time and amount. And then you'll see your effective Hex, which is how much Hex you're actually getting to burn. So you're burning supply when you stake. And then you're being given a marker. And this marker is called a T-share. And this T-share exists out at that moment of time that you've chosen, whether it be a day or a year or 5 or 10 or 15 years, 5,555 days to be exact, which we call the Cuatro Cinco or the 555. That is the longest you can stake. And it was done for reasons, technical reasons. There was a reason why it was done. Basically, when it comes to the S load on Ethereum, how it does the calculations, that was like the optimum amount of time you want to do it. So anyway, that T-share is a marker in time. Now, the T-share is what is brilliant. And it was so hard for me to understand what a T-share was in the beginning. I just couldn't wrap my head around it. I didn't understand. I was trying to figure out what it was. But if somebody had kind of explained it to me as a walk into it, hey, you stake your Hex, here's your effective Hex, here's your Hex in time, here's your Hex in amount that you put out there, here's your bonuses. Boom, now you're going to get a T-share. So basically that Hex at the time you're staking is a calculated value. Your effective Hex is a calculated value. Oh, let me hold. I want to answer the phone. So a calculated value, and that value is traded for a T-share. And those T-shares are priced every single day, the T-share price changes, moves, develops. It always moves in the up position. It always gets more expensive, the T-share does. And there's a reason for it. So when you buy your T-share with the HEX you have, the value of that HEX at that moment per T-share, not the value dollar value, but the value of HEX per T-share, you get that T-share, and that T-share sits at that moment of time where you've placed it. Now, you wait until it comes to fruition, and then you unstake it. And that's when you get your bonus. Now, here's how that works. Every single day, your T-share that sits out there is going to get a certain amount of HEX based on how many people are in the staking pool. So other people who have staked and the amount of HEX that has been staked determines how much of the inflation or the pie that your stake gets. The more stakers, the less your percentage of the pie. The less stakers, the more percentage of the pie. So it's understandable that the earlier stakes were, there were less stakers in the pool than there are today. So, but the price of HEX was a lot lower then too. So dollar for dollar, HEX is going up in price, but the T-share amount of inflation that's being paid out to the stakers themselves is being diluted more and more as more stakes go in. And of course, we also seen just recently the OA did another benevolent move, and some people can argue whether it is or isn't, but actually slowed the share rate down, which we were way up there, 7, 8 HEX per T-share, something like that. It was way up there. Slowed it down to where now it's like 1.5 HEX per T-share. Now that, some would argue that gives it a lot of room for price action now. A lot of room to see HEX go up in value versus the yield that it's generating. And of course, the OA can do a lot of different things, unstake, emergency end stake, and all that. Here's something else that's very important to understand is that now that you've staked, you're part of the system. And think of your stake, we talked about a CD for a moment, but think of your stake as more of a miner, a staking miner, a proof of stake miner that's getting the inflation of HEX delivered to it. Delayed, of course, that inflation is delayed, which is a beautiful thing for the whole system because every single HEX that inflates is delayed inflation, whether it's a day or it's 15 years. That inflation is staked. That inflation has a time when it's supposed to come out into the market. Not so much with Bitcoin mining. So your little T-share that's out there, it's mining HEX and waiting for you to come pick it up. So let's just say 5 years from now, your stake comes due. It's time to pull it out. And you go in and you unstake it. You unstake that. New coins are instantly minted. You minted new coins. Nobody gave you anything. This is important to understand about HEX. HEX is not, you're not given HEX by any organization, any institution, any centralized agency. You push the button and mint that brand new HEX into existence through the code. You do it. Mutable code. You do it decentralized, you do it self-custody, nobody else but you and the code. That's what's beautiful. It is the when it comes to the Howey test, HEX just kicks all the legs out from underneath the Howey test. Does not pass any of them. Just anyway. So when you're part of the system now, when you're actually in there staked and you're waiting and you're not emergency end staking, which is a tool that you can pull that stake out early if you'd like. Severe penalties for doing so. Even a day early, severe penalties for unstaking. Now, I like to joke around and say, hey, go ahead, hit the button, unstake, folks. Now, why do I do that? Because I'm trying to prove that if you are working with the Truth Engine, if you are being true to your stake, you are actually part of the system. Not only are you mining and generating that inflation and bringing new HEX into the system, but you are also part of the system of penalties. So when people do emergency end stake, you get those penalties. It gets distributed out through the staking pool. So you're part of the system all the way around. You're basically, you're mining and bringing the inflation of Hexa. You don't see that anywhere in any other crypto. The inflation model, the staking model, all the things that the OA has done, the community, the build out, everything that has happened up until now, and how important Hex is to real crypto, real DeFi. I mean, the writing is on the wall that the perfect crypto has been made, and that's Hex. To me, Hex is the crypto of all cryptos. Now, PulseChain, great. We got an L1. I dig it. We got a DEX with PulseX. There's an incentive token. All these things are great, but nothing compares to the GOAT. The GOAT is Hex. The best crypto on planet Earth is Hex. Nothing else functions like it. Nothing else has proven itself like it. Nothing else works like Hex. And nothing else has everything that it has behind it. The community is A1. A1. The dedication, the devotion, the loyalty, the hard work, the effort can even sometimes look like a cult. People call us a cult. They say all this stuff. But you know what? That is not what we are. We are a marketing juggernaut. We are a crypto disseminating crypto information beast. That's what this community is. And they made the beast by coming so hard at us, by lying, cheating, trying to steal from us, by sending us to court, by coming after Richard, by coming after all of us individually, by fudding our bags, by trying to hold us down and doing nefarious things like putting us on the back pages of coin ranking sites. All of these things they did to us made this community stronger. And now they're going to have to deal with us. They're going to have to deal with the greatest crypto that it's ever been put out in this whole space, coming in and eating their lunch, and us. We are going to be able to do, look, it's going to be quick-lived, but we are going to be able to do our happy dance one of these days and dance. Well, we won't dance on the graves, right? But we will, for a moment celebrate, but then it's back to work and letting people know who we are. So that's who we are, what we're all about, what Hex is all about. Again, it's gonna change the world as far as I'm concerned, and we've only seen the beginning. If Bitcoin did 3 million X, why can't Hex do more than a 10,000 X? You know what I'm saying? It's better technology. It's got a better community. It's got a better founder. Everything is here and set up for it. So get ready. The kinetic energy is pulled back. That bow is going to fire, and this thing's going to go to the moon. This cycle, I'm very, very excited about. What's up, Max? You kicking me off, getting the hook?
Hey, dude, it's great. You've been doing excellent. It can be an excellent intro for people to learn about Hex from someone who's been around it a while and knows the ins and outs. And oh man, I think I saw somebody mention 55,000 X for Hex yesterday. I think there was some rumble of that. So why not? Where's the price god? Where's the price god saying it's too high? I don't see any price god.
There is none.